In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? My film is a film noir inspired thriller or neo-noir, and it not only follows conventions but challenges and develops them as well. For example, my film follows the convention of a femme fatale. A femme fatale is a female character who, although they appear nice and innocent, they're actually the complete opposite, and as the story develops, their character develops, and it turns out that they are actually a more evil character. And that's what happens in my film, because although she may dress normal, she is wearing dark clothes, which demonstrates how, although she comes across as innocent, that's not the case, and the dark clothes demonstrate how later on in the film she's going to develop to be not so much of a nice character. Another convention my film follows is that there is a male antagonist, and it's stereotypical of a film noir film for the main antagonist or the evil person in the film to be male, because they're stereotypically demonstrated as more powerful and in charge, and that is the case in our film. Although the femme fatale does have an almost joint role, the male antagonist is the one that takes the lead role in the film. Although my film follows conventions relating to characters, it does also follow conventions to do with mise-en-scène. For example, throughout the whole film, the main antagonist, has Rembrandt-style side lighting on one side of his face, which is where it is dark and mysterious on one side and light on the other side, and it shows moral ambiguity. Not only that, but the clothing that was worn by the main antagonist and the female antagonist and other characters during the flashback in the film, they wear suits and clothes that were typical of the film noir era, which was smart dressing, rather than modern clothes which were more likely to be seen in a film today. The final thing that my film followed convention was the titling. The titling was done in block capitals and predominantly white, which is how many film noir films were done with the titling. And I decided to do this because although the film may seem more modern, the titling brings it back and makes the viewer realise that it is actually a film noir or neo-noir film, and it does give it an oldie world feel. Despite following many of the conventions of film noir, my film does also challenge some. For example, in a film noir film, the colours are extremely dull and bland, and the lighting is bland, whereas I've done the complete flip in my film, and I've made sure that there is high contrast lighting, and the colours are more bright and vibrant, and it's noticeable when the male and female antagonists are talking. There's a bright red wall behind the male antagonist, and there is red on the curtains behind the female antagonist. Despite them wearing very dark clothes, it contrasts with the other colours behind it, which is not typical of film noir. How does your media product represent particular social groups? Firstly, in my film, women are shown to be weak and powerless, in contrast to men who are shown to be powerful, and this is shown when the two antagonists are speaking and the camera is looking up at the male antagonist and down at the female one. And although she does have some power in the film, it is stereotypical of that time that the woman has far less power than the male. In addition to this, there's also a contrast between upper and lower class. All but one of the characters in this film are upper class or thereabouts and wear suits and smart clothes, whereas the complete contrast and opposite is the lower class, where there is a man sitting in scruffy, worn-out clothes, smoking and drinking, and it shows that the upper class have a far better way of life than the lower class do. What kind of media institution might distribute your media product and why? I believe a media institution such as Polygram Filmed Entertainment might distribute my film because it is similar to a film that they have done before called Trainspotting, as it has narrations and voiceovers. I believe that also because it's a British film, Polygram Filmed Entertainment would be suitable to distribute our film. However, I do also believe that Working Title could be another option to distribute our film. The reason for that is because they have a wider audience as they're linked with Universal. It could allow our film, although it's British and small and has a limited target audience, it could allow our film to be distributed to more people around the world because of their link with Universal Studios. Who would be the audience for your media product? The main target audience for my film is teenagers or young adults. There are two main reasons behind this. Firstly, throughout the film, the actors are mostly young children or adults, and that means that it's relatable to people of that age category of teenagers and young adults. Secondly, we did a questionnaire for my group to find out what topics teenagers and young adults would find interesting in a film, and that will be later talked about in the next question. But it's because the film is based on drugs and drinking and gangs and violence. That is something that we found out in the surveys that this age group liked, and that is why the film is aimed specifically at them. How did you attract/address your audience? The people who replied were teenagers and young adults, and they both said that they felt that a major issue and something that would make a film interesting was smoking, drugs, and things of that sort, violence, and our film includes a lot of those things. So that addresses and attracts a target audience because they would see that after they've said that that's what they want to see is in the film and will make them want to watch the film. Another thing that attracted the audience was that it does not stay in the same place. Over the space of the 2-minute opening, there is 3 different settings, and that is something that the target audience had addressed and said that they want, because they said that if it stays in too long for a certain amount of time, then it gets boring and ends up dragging on. And so I think because it changes setting 3 times in the space of 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, that will be something that our audience will enjoy. What have you learnt about technologies from the process of constructing this product? The most important thing that I've learned throughout the construct of this product is the importance of the camera. The importance of keeping the camera still and using a tripod and all the different camera shots. For example, looking up at someone who has power, looking down on someone who doesn't have power, using a Dutch tilt to show something is off or askew, and all the different shots and their meanings is one of the main things I've learned throughout the process. In addition to this, although I had used Final Cut before, my knowledge about it was minimal, but now after using it for the past months, I've learned how to do things such as chroma key and the importance of overlaying many clips and maybe reducing the opacity, such as in our flashback scene. Furthermore, I've also used a sound program called Audacity, which enables you to record sound on it and then manipulate it in many ways, or remove background noise or anything like that. And I've also used a few Web 2.0 tools, and they are things like Powtoon, which allows me to create a PowerPoint but online. Web 2.0 tools was something that I wasn't familiar with when I started the course. However, as I've progressed, I've used many of them and I've become more familiar and used to them now. Looking back on your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learned in the progression from it to the full product? I would say one of the biggest things I've learned from my preliminary task to now is how important the editing is, and how one style of editing can completely change the feel of the film. For example, when I was doing my film, I first edited it one way and it gave it a completely different feel to how it is now, because I've edited it in a completely different style and it is now more dark and gloomy to match the film noir type of film. Also, in my preliminary task, I did use camera shots such as the 180-degree rule and the match on action, but now I have a greater understanding of the importance of them and why they're there. Moreover, I've learnt the sheer importance of mise-en-scène. For example, looking back on my preliminary task, I used little, if at all, mise-en-scène to do with clothing, to do with backgrounds, to do with scenery, to do with lighting. But in my final product, a lot of the atmosphere and tension is created through this, to do with the dress they're wearing, such as the suits, to create a sense of time. There's Rembrandt-style side lighting used in my film throughout all of it, and there is a red background behind the antagonist, which demonstrates death and blood and other things relating to that, which shows how I've progressed from not understanding why to use mise-en-scène to using it lots.